Hey, what's going on guys? Ace Trainer John here, and today we're going to be going over first impressions for Season of the Chosen, or Season 13 of Destiny 2. But before we jump into the discussion today, I asked if you want to keep up to date on all Destiny 2 news, information, leaks, tutorials, and more, that you go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Otherwise, let's jump into it. So first off, like my previous first impressions video, we're going to start off with a little story summary, so you get an idea of what's going on. Basically, the Cabal homeworld Terra Bottle, I hope I said that right, was invaded by Xivu Arath's hive, effectively making the Cabal homeless, and very angry at the hive. So because of that, the current leader of the Cabal, Emperor Calus's daughter, Kaitel, has come to talk to the leader of humanity at the moment, which is Commander Zavala, and has come to propose an alliance, although peace talks end up falling through when Kaitel ends up telling Zavala that he needs to bow to her, and that humanity in general basically needs to become a slave to the Cabal Empire. And because Zavala is not vibing with that, he says no. And so originally Kaitel's plan was to originally just give Zavala a seat on her council, but instead of straight up killing Zavala and humanity, which would be the stupid decision for the Cabal since Xivu Arath is on their ass, and the darkness is 2 feet away from them, Kaitel proposes another idea in which we compete and for a chance to be on her council without being a slave to the Cabal Empire. So because this competition starts up, the rest of the Cabal that are trying to compete for that spot on the council end up setting battlegrounds on the different planets for this whole ritual. And this ends up bringing us to the gameplay loop of the season, in which we, the Guardian, are humanity's champion to compete for the battleground. And so the gameplay loop goes like this. We play practically any activity in the game to acquire Cabal gold, as well as Umbral engrams. Keep a pin in Umbral engrams because we're going to continue talking about the Hammer of Proving. Once you get enough Cabal gold, you take it to your Hammer of Proving, and then you slot a rune. This rune will allow you to destroy a chest at the end of the Battlegrounds activity. When you destroy this chest, you actually get a random piece of Battlegrounds loot, as well as the chance for an Umbral engram. And also, when you destroy a chest, you actually get a Hammer charge. And once you have enough Hammer charges, you can come back to the Prismatic Recaster in the brand new social space, the Helm, and you can use those Hammer charges to focus your Umbral engrams, which reduces the loot pool of the engram, making it easier to target farm pieces of loot. Also, lastly, you can go to the War Table in the Helm, which will allow you to level up and unlock brand new upgrades for your Hammer Proving to allow you to get more loot and make farming even easier. And the way you level up your War Table rank is actually you complete 3 weekly seasonal challenges that are available each week for the first 10 weeks of the season. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the season, the first week of the season, my first impressions. So far I have to say, this season is starting off pretty strong and pretty solid. Now last season, I feel like the only real redeeming quality of it was the story, and this season, the story is even better than last season's. I just overall love how it's like a whole political game that we're playing, and it feels very involved from the standpoint that this feels like a whole military operation that we're sort of doing to secure that political position. Also, the story ends up bringing back some characters that have been sort of sitting on the sideline for a very long time. We're talking about Amanda Holiday and Saladin. They've been very quiet for a long time, so it's good to see these 2 characters come back. It's also quite fun to see their interactions between each other, you know, Osiris, Crow, Saladin, and Holiday. It's quite fun to see their interaction as well during the Battlegrounds activity. And speaking of the Battlegrounds activity, it is leagues better than last season. The Battlegrounds are very engaging and are almost as long as some strikes in the game. Hell, even longer than some of the strikes. And the ad density in these Battlegrounds are decently high enough so that I don't feel like I'm competing for kills, which is a plus. I'd like to see more of this going forward. On top of this, the boss isn't an instant melt, and it isn't annoying to fight. And on top of all that to bring it together, there's actually some decent loot rewards at the end of the Battlegrounds activity, which again adds on to the replayability and the engagement to the activity. Anyway, speaking of the loot, this season has a lot of loot and a lot of loot to chase. I mean, it practically did loop perfectly. The ritual weapon this season is very interesting and very good. It actually has a perk combo that is brand new to that weapon type. On top of this, the brand new Nightfall exclusive weapons make me want to grind out Nightfalls, because they are decently strong. And the Battlegrounds weapons have very strong perk combinations, which makes it very intriguing to go grind for. Don't get me started on Trials. I mean, to be fair, Trials is in a very bad state at the moment with the whole stasis situation and no PvP maps and 3-peaking and everything, but the weapons and gear that have been added are very interesting to grind for. For example, the Messenger, it has Desperado, which was a pinnacle weapon perk, and because that weapon perk is so good on that weapon, it makes it 100% worth grinding for. On top of this, they've added a couple of new perks like Frenzy and Lasting Impression, which are very strong and meta-changing. Overall, props to Bungie on the loot side. Activity and story of the season is fantastic. I hope they can end up keeping this momentum for the rest of the year. However, if I had to point out one negative this season, it is probably the Devil's Lair strike and probably the Fallen Saber strike, although I don't know about the Fallen Saber strike because nobody has been able to play it because it's been bugged. Basically, I like the way how Devil's Lair was done. It has a very high ad density, and that's a very good, and the boss is fun to fight. However, the story and the way the rest of the Cosmodrome was brought in was not okay. I very much disliked it a lot. See, the main problem I have with this whole story situation that we have going on with the Devil's Lair and presumably the Fallen Saber strike is the fact that they set a precedent with the Disgrace / Omnigul strike. When they released that from Beyond Light, I was under the impression that anything brought out of the DCV was going to be relevant in the story. But unfortunately, because it's not relevant to the story, that whole section of the Cosmodrome that they brought back, you actually can't access from Patrol, and that's because it is technically a period locked in time, and if it was open in Patrol, it would not make any sense at all to the story of Destiny right now. And actually, in the most recent TWAB, they went on to state that they weren't going to bring it up to Rise of Iron parity, which makes me very sad, because the Cosmodrome as it sits right now feels very barren. But I guess, in a way, I can forgive this if this is in sacrifice for more new content. Also, like I said, the Devil's Lair strike is very fun to play because the boss has good, non-annoying mechanics, as well as the ad density is very high and the objectives are not annoying. But I guess in a way I can forgive this negative that happened with the Cosmodrome. I would like to reiterate, I don't want to ever see this type of stuff ever happen again. Anyways, this wraps up my first impressions for the season. Let me know in the comments down below what your first impressions of the season are, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.